The most powerful queen of the galaxy unexpectedly declared me her spouse, shocking the whole court. The great hall of the galactic court was larger than any city the human had ever seen. Its ceiling rose so high that clouds drifted beneath it, glowing softly with artificial stars. Columns the size of mountains stood in perfect circles, carved with symbols older than most civilizations. Thousands of beings filled the chamber, towering armored warlords, floating scholars of light, insect nobles wrapped in silk, and creatures whose shapes hurt the mind to fully understand. At the very center of it all stood one human. His name was Evan Hale. He wore a simple dark uniform, no medals, no glowing armor, no visible weapons. Compared to the others, he looked fragile, small, almost out of place. Many in the court believed it was a mistake that he had even been allowed inside. Evan stood quietly, hands relaxed at his sides, eyes forward. He had learned long ago that fear only gave power to those who wanted to crush you, and in this room nearly everyone wanted him crushed. "Human!" a booming voice echoed through the hall. The sound came from the throne. High above everyone else sat Queen Aurelian, ruler of the stellar dominion, conqueror of 1,000 systems, the most powerful being in the known galaxy. Her form was tall and radiant, her skin glowing like molten gold beneath layers of living armor. Her eyes were stars, cold, ancient, and endlessly watchful. Entire species had surrendered at the sight of her. Evan felt the weight of her gaze settle on him. It was heavy like gravity pulling at his bones. Still, he did not move. "Kneel," commanded the High Arbiter, a floating being of crystal and flame. "You stand before the sovereign of all known stars." Around Evan, the court waited. Humans kneeling before alien rulers was not new. Humanity had done it before too many times. It had never ended well. Evan slowly took a breath. He did not kneel. A sharp wave of shock rolled through the chamber. Gasps, hisses, clicks, and psychic ripples filled the air. Several guards immediately raised weapons that glowed with enough power to erase cities. "Did the human not understand?" one noble whispered. "Arrogance," growled a warlord with 4 burning eyes. "They breed it like a disease." The High Arbiter's voice hardened. "Human. This is your final warning." Evan lifted his head slightly. His voice, when he spoke, was calm and steady. "I understand where I am," he said, "but I kneel only to those who earn it, not to power alone." Silence fell. Not the ordinary kind, but a deep, dangerous silence, the kind that came right before execution. The guards tightened their grip. The queen did not speak. Instead, she leaned forward. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes burned brighter. She studied Evan not like prey, but like a puzzle she had waited centuries to solve. "How interesting," she said at last. Her voice was smooth, powerful, and carried through every mind in the chamber without effort. "You fear death, yet you refuse submission." "I fear dishonor more," Evan replied. That was when the court truly erupted. "Execute him. This insult cannot stand. Humans overstep their place again." The noise grew so loud that even the walls seemed to vibrate. The High Arbiter raised multiple limbs to restore order, but the queen lifted a single finger. The entire hall went silent instantly. Evan felt it then, her power, not violent, not cruel, absolute. She rose from her throne, every being bowed as one. Even the proudest warlords bent low, trembling. Evan did not move. Queen Aurelian descended the steps slowly, each step echoing like thunder across the stars. When she reached the floor, she stood only a few paces away from Evan. Up close, her presence was overwhelming. Heat radiated from her like a sun. Her eyes searched his face, not for weakness, but for truth. "You are not afraid," she said. "I am," Evan answered honestly. "But fear doesn't decide who I am." A soft murmur rippled through the court. Honesty was rare here, dangerous. The queen tilted her head slightly. "Why are you here, human?" Evan swallowed. This was the moment he had prepared for. "I am here as an envoy," he said. "Not to beg, not to threaten, but to speak." "Speak what?" she asked. "That humanity will not bow quietly anymore," Evan said. "We do not seek war, but we will not be crushed to make others feel safe." Several nobles hissed in anger. "A bold lie," sneered a tall serpentine lord. "Humans are weak. Your worlds survive only because we allow them to." Evan turned his head just enough to meet the alien's gaze. "Then you misunderstand us." The queen watched him closely. "And what is it that we misunderstand?" she asked. Evan paused. He chose his words carefully. "You think strength is domination," he said. "We think strength is standing back up when everything tells you to stay down." A ripple of discomfort moved through the chamber. Queen Aurelian straightened. Human, she said slowly. Do you know how many have stood where you stand now? I can guess, Evan replied. They all knelt, she said, or they died. Then I will be different, Evan said quietly. For the first time in centuries, the queen smiled. It was not warm, it was not cruel, it was intrigued. Leave us, she commanded suddenly. The court froze. Your Majesty, the High Arbiter said, stunned. Leave, she repeated, all of you. That caused chaos. No private audience has ever. Leave, her voice thundered, and the argument ended. One by one, the beings of the court retreated, casting confused and fearful glances at Evan. Whispers spread like wildfire. Some believed the human was about to be destroyed in secret. Others feared something far worse. Soon, the great hall was empty. Only Evan and the queen remained. The silence now felt different, heavier, more personal. You should be dead, Queen Aurelian said. I know, Evan replied. Do you know why you are not? She asked. Evan shook his head. Because I have waited a very long time to meet a human who would not kneel, she said. Evan frowned. Why? She walked past him slowly, circling him like a star orbiting a planet. Because my power, she said, is destroying my empire. Evan stiffened. The galaxy sees me as perfection, she continued, as strength beyond challenge, but they do not see the cost. My kind burns too brightly. We conquer, then collapse, over and over. She stopped in front of him again. I have ruled for centuries, she said, and I have seen the same pattern repeat across 1,000 species. Evan listened carefully. Except humans, she said. He looked up at her. We're not special, her eyes flashed. No, she said firmly, you are worse. That surprised him. You break, she continued. You fall. You lose everything, and yet you rebuild. Again and again, you do not burn out, you endure. Evan said nothing. I summoned you here to test a theory, she said, and, Evan asked. She studied him in silence. You passed, she said. Evan felt a chill run through him. What does that mean? The queen turned away, gazing up at the empty throne. It means, she said softly, that the galaxy is about to change. Evan opened his mouth to ask more, and alarm suddenly screamed through the hall. Red light flooded the chamber. Assassins, the queen said calmly. From the shadows, figures emerged, cloaked, fast, deadly. Blades of dark energy hummed to life. Evan reacted without thinking. He moved. He grabbed a fallen ceremonial spear from the floor and stepped in front of the queen. You don't need to, she began. I know, Evan said, but I will. The assassins charged, and in that moment, as a single human stood between the most powerful queen in the galaxy and death itself, the stars seemed to hold their breath. The galaxy would never be the same again. The first assassin moved like living shadow. Evan barely had time to react. The creature leapt forward, blade raised, aiming not at him but past him, straight for the queen's heart. Evan stepped into its path without thinking. The ceremonial spear felt heavy and unfamiliar in his hands, but his grip was steady. The blade struck the spear shaft with a flash of dark light. The force threw Evan backward, his boots sliding across the polished floor. Pain shot through his arms, but he did not let go. The queen watched. She did not move. Two more assassins rushed forward, their movements fast and perfect, trained for centuries of silent killing. Evan's mind raced. He had no armor, no training against beings like this, but he had one thing they did not expect. He did not hesitate. He lowered his center of balance and swung the spear wide, not to kill, but to block. The wide arc forced the assassins to adjust. That small mistake gave him time. Behind you, the queen said calmly. Evan ducked as a blade sliced through the air where his head had been a moment before. He rolled across the floor, came up on one knee, and thrust the spear forward. The blunt ceremonial tip struck an assassin in the chest. It did not pierce, but the impact sent the creature flying into a column with bone-cracking force. Evan gasped for breath. His heart pounded so hard it felt like it would tear free. You could end this instantly, Evan shouted without looking back. Why aren't you? Because I am watching, the queen replied. Another assassin lunged. Evan raised the spear just in time, but the force shattered the shaft. The weapon snapped in two. Evan stared at the broken end in his hands for half a second too long. The assassin's blade came down. A wave of heat blasted through the hall. The blade stopped inches from Evan's face, frozen in midair. The assassin screamed as golden light wrapped around its body, lifting it helplessly into the air. The queen finally moved. She stepped forward, eyes burning like twin suns. With a small motion of her hand, the floating assassin collapsed inward, crushed by invisible pressure, then vanished into ash that never touched the floor. The remaining attackers hesitated. That was their mistake. The queen raised her arms, and the hall itself seemed to bend. The assassins were ripped from the ground, slammed into walls, and erased in bursts of blinding light. The silence returned just as suddenly as the violence had begun. Evan dropped to one knee, breathing hard. His hands shook not from fear but from the sudden release of tension. The queen turned to him. "You stood between me and death," she said. Evan looked up. "You were still behind me." "Yes," she said, "but you did not know that." He shrugged weakly. "Didn't matter." She stared at him for a long moment. Then the guards arrived. Elite royal sentinels poured into the hall, weapons ready, eyes scanning for threats. They froze when they saw the queen unharmed and the human kneeling before her, not in submission but exhaustion. "Secure the chamber," the queen commanded. The sentinels moved instantly, sealing entrances, scanning for lingering threats. The High Arbiter entered moments later, its crystalline body glowing with alarm. "Your Majesty, are you injured?" it asked. "No," the queen replied. Its many eyes turned to Evan. "The human interfered." "He protected," the queen corrected. That caused another ripple of shock. "The court must reconvene immediately," the High Arbiter said. "This attack changes." "It changes nothing," the queen interrupted. "Except what was already coming." She extended a hand toward Evan. "Rise." Evan hesitated, then stood. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself upright. The queen faced the guards. "Take him to my inner chambers. He is under my protection." The words hit the room like a shockwave. Several guards stiffened. One even glanced at the High Arbiter, uncertain. "Now," the queen said. Evan was escorted through corridors that glowed with soft light and humming energy. The palace was even more massive inside than the hall suggested. Endless passages curved impossibly, bending space in ways that made Evan's head ache if he looked too closely. No one spoke. Finally, they reached a chamber unlike any Evan had ever seen. It was quiet, warm. Open to space itself, with a transparent barrier showing a slow river of stars drifting past. The guards stopped. "Wait here," one said before leaving. Evan stood alone, staring at the stars. His hands still trembled. He replayed the attack again and again in his mind. He had acted without thinking, not because he was brave, but because it felt wrong to step aside. That simple truth unsettled him more than the danger had. Moments later, the queen entered. She dismissed the guards with a glance. "You are injured," she said. "Nothing serious," Evan replied. "Just bruises." She approached, studying him closely. Her presence filled the room, yet here, away from the court, it felt quieter, less overwhelming. "You acted on instinct," she said. "No calculation, no hesitation." "That's how humans survive," Evan said. "We don't always have time to think." She considered this. "You did not try to kill them," she noted, "even when you could have struck to harm." "I didn't need to," Evan said. "I just needed to slow them down." "For me," she said. "Yes," Evan replied. The queen turned toward the stars. "Do you know who sent them?" Evan shook his head. "My own court," she said calmly. He stiffened. "Your people tried to assassinate you?" "Some of them," she said. "They fear change more than death." Evan let out a slow breath. "So what happens now?" She faced him again. "Now," she said, "you become the center of a storm." He gave a tired smile. "That seems to be happening a lot today." For the first time, the queen laughed softly. It was a sound no one else in the galaxy had ever heard. "You confuse me, human," she said. "You do not seek power, yet power moves around you." "I didn't ask for any of this," Evan said honestly. "I know," she replied. "That is why it matters." She stepped closer, lowering herself slightly so their eyes were level. "When my court learns that you shielded me without obligation, without promise of reward," she said, "they will see you as a threat." "Because I'm human?" Evan asked. "Because you remind them of something they lost," she said. "Choice." Evan frowned. "You still haven't told me why I was summoned." She held his gaze. "I told you part of the truth," she said. "I needed to test humanity, but the test was never about strength." "Then what was it about?" Evan asked. "Balance," she said. She gestured, and the air between them shimmered. Images appeared, worlds burning, empires rising and falling, stars collapsing into darkness. "My power grows with conquest," she said. "Each victory feeds it. But too much power destroys its wielder. My kind was never meant to rule forever." The images shifted. Human worlds appeared damaged, scarred, but rebuilding. "You survive loss," she continued. "You adapt. You share power instead of hoarding it. You slow the fire." Evan watched silently. "I need that," she said. "The galaxy needs that." A terrible understanding began to form in Evan's mind. "You're talking about more than politics," he said. "Yes," she replied. "I am talking about binding." Evan took a step back. "Binding how?" She met his gaze without flinching. "By law, by bond, by choice," she said. "A union that forces my empire to change." Evan's heart pounded. "You're saying I have not declared anything yet," she said gently. "But the court will soon demand answers. And enemies will strike again." She paused. "When they do," she said, "they will aim for you." Evan swallowed. "Because I stood in front of you." "Yes," she said, "because you mattered." The weight of her words pressed down on him. "I'm just one man," Evan said. She smiled softly. "That is what frightens them most." Outside the chamber, distant alarms echoed again, warnings spreading through the palace. The queen straightened. "The court reconvenes at dawn," she said, "and nothing will ever be the same." Evan looked at the stars, then back at her. "Then I guess I should get some rest," he said quietly. Her smile deepened. "Yes," she said, "you will need it." As the lights dimmed and the palace shifted into defensive readiness, one truth settled across the galaxy like a rising tide. A human had stepped into the heart of power, and the galaxy had begun to change around him. The palace did not sleep. Even as the lights dimmed in Evan's chamber, the walls hummed with quiet movement. Defensive systems shifted, guards rotated, and unseen watchers studied every corner of the Queen's domain. Outside the transparent barrier, stars drifted slowly, uncaring to the tension growing inside the heart of the Empire. Evan lay awake. He stared at the ceiling, hands resting on his chest, listening to his own breathing. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw blades of dark light, felt the impact of the broken spear, heard the Queen's calm voice behind him. "You mattered." The words echoed louder than the alarms had. A soft chime sounded. Evan sat up at once. The air shimmered and a figure stepped into the room. It was not the Queen, but a tall being wrapped in flowing silver robes. Its face was smooth and pale, its eyes deep pools of blue light. "I am Lyrian," the being said gently. "First voice of the Queen." Evan nodded. "I'm Evan." "I know," Lyrian replied. "I have read everything about you." "That's comforting," Evan said dryly. Lyrian's lips curved slightly. "You should know, human, that half the court wants you removed before dawn." "And the other half?" Evan asked. "Wants to use you," Lyrian said honestly. Evan sighed. "Sounds about right." Lyrian stepped closer. "You must understand something. The Queen's interest in you has destabilized centuries of careful control." "I didn't ask for her interest," Evan said. "No," Lyrian agreed. "Which is why it terrifies them." The first voice studied Evan carefully. "Tomorrow the court will demand answers. They will question your intentions, your loyalty, your worth." "And if they don't like the answers?" Evan asked. "They will push for your execution," Lyrian said calmly. Evan absorbed that in silence. "What does the Queen want?" he asked. Lyrian hesitated. "She wants the truth from you." "Then she'll get it," Evan said. Lyrian inclined their head. "Rest if you can. Tomorrow will test you more than blades ever could." When Lyrian vanished, Evan lay back down. Sleep came slowly, but it did come. He dreamed of Earth, not cities or battles, but quiet moments. Rain on cracked pavement. A child laughing while rebuilding a broken toy. People standing back up after everything had fallen apart. When Evan woke, the palace was already alive. Guards escorted him through wide corridors toward the heart of the court. This time there were more of them. Their weapons were active, their faces unreadable. The Great Hall was fuller than before. Word of the assassination attempt had spread across the empire. Nobles from distant systems had arrived overnight. Observers hovered in the air, recording every movement. When Evan entered, thousands of eyes turned toward him. Some burned with hatred, some with fear, some with curiosity. He walked alone to the center of the hall. The Queen had not yet arrived. Whispers rose like a storm. "That's the human." He stood before her. He brought the assassins. He survived. Evan kept his eyes forward. The High Arbiter floated into place, its crystalline form glowing brightly. "This emergency session of the Galactic Court is now in order," it announced. "We address the attempted assassination of Her Sovereign Majesty and the involvement of the human envoy." Murmurs spread. A tall warlord stepped forward, armor bristling with weapons. "The human is a destabilizing element," the warlord growled. "Since his arrival, chaos has followed." Another noble spoke, a being of shimmering mist. "Coincidence does not exist at this level of power." Evan opened his mouth to respond. The Queen arrived. She descended from above in a pillar of golden light. The entire hall bowed instantly, the motion like a wave crashing inward. Evan did not kneel, but this time no one shouted. The queen took her throne and looked down at the assembly. "Speak," she commanded. The warlord bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, the human's presence has already resulted in an assassination attempt. By ancient law, he must be removed for the stability of the empire." Several voices agreed. The queen turned her gaze to Evan. "Do you wish to speak?" "Yes," Evan said. The hall quieted. "I didn't come here to cause trouble," Evan said simply. "I came because humanity was summoned. I stood in front of you because it was the right thing to do." "That is not an answer," the warlord snapped. "It is," Evan replied calmly. "You just don't like it." A hiss of anger rippled through the court. The queen raised a hand for silence. "You are accused of manipulation," she said to Evan. "Of ambition. Of seeking influence over the throne." Evan met her gaze. "I don't want your throne." That caused laughter. "You expect us to believe that?" sneered a noble. Evan looked around the hall. "I grew up on a world that had nothing the galaxy wanted, no rare metals, no ancient power. Just people, and every time we lost something, we rebuilt it." He paused. "We learned that power isn't something you grab," he said. "It's something you carry carefully because it can break everything around you." The hall grew quieter. "You think I want to rule you?" Evan continued. "I can barely survive standing in this room." Some nobles shifted uncomfortably. The queen leaned forward slightly. "What do you want, human?" she asked. Evan took a deep breath. "I want humanity to live without fear of being erased because we're seen as weak. I want a future where survival doesn't depend on kneeling." Silence followed. Then the High Arbiter spoke. "Noble words, but ideals do not balance empires." "No," Evan said. "People do." The queen's eyes burned brighter. At that moment, a sharp pulse of energy rippled through the hall. Alarms screamed again. "Another attack!" someone shouted. "No," the High Arbiter said, scanning rapidly. "This is internal." A figure stepped forward from the ranks of nobles. Tall, radiating cold authority, it was Lord Vakar, one of the queen's oldest advisors. "Enough," Vakar said. "The truth must be revealed." The queen's gaze hardened. "Careful, Vakar. The empire stands on the edge of collapse," Vakar continued. "Your power grows unstable. We all feel it, and now you hide behind a human to delay the inevitable." A collective gasp swept the hall. Evan stiffened. The queen rose slowly from her throne. "You forget your place," she said. "No," Vakar replied. "I remember it too well." He turned to the court. "Her strength is no longer under control. Entire systems tremble when she exerts herself. If she continues, the empire will burn." Whispers turned to fear. Evan looked at the queen. For the first time he saw it, a faint tremor in the air around her, like space itself reacting to her presence. "You knew this," Evan said softly. She did not deny it. Vakar pointed at Evan. "And now she binds herself to this human, hoping his species will stabilize what cannot be saved." The hall erupted. The queen's voice thundered. "I have bound myself to nothing." "Yet," Vakar said calmly. Evan stepped forward before he could stop himself. "If this is about me, then don't use me as a symbol," he said. "Say it plainly." The queen turned to him. Evan continued, his voice steady. "If your power is hurting the galaxy, then hiding it won't fix anything. And if you think humans can help, then tell them why." The hall fell silent again. The queen looked at Evan for a long moment, then she spoke. "My power is tied to conquest," she said. "It always has been. Each victory feeds it. Each submission strengthens it." She spread her hands. The air shimmered and images appeared, worlds falling, fleets burning, stars bending under her will. "I cannot stop it alone," she said. "If I do, the empire fractures. If I don't, it collapses." Fear spread openly now. Evan felt the weight of her words. "And humans?" he asked quietly. "Humans survive without conquest," she said. "You lose and you adapt, you break and you rebuild. Your presence dampens my power, stabilizes it." Vakar snarled. "You would weaken yourself for them." "I would save the galaxy," she replied. Evan turned to the court. "Then stop seeing this as control," he said. "See it as balance." Vakar raised his hand, energy gathering. "I will not let the empire be reshaped by a fragile species." Before anyone could react, Vakar released the energy. It tore across the hall toward the queen. Evan moved. He didn't think. He didn't hesitate. He stepped into the path of the blast. The force slammed into him like a star collapsing. Pain exploded through his body. He felt himself lifted off the ground, thrown backward, crashing hard into the floor. The hall screamed. "Evan!" someone shouted. The queen's power erupted. The blast froze midair, then shattered into harmless light. Vakar was crushed to the floor by invisible force, pinned and helpless. The queen rushed to Evan's side. He lay still. Smoke rose from his clothes. His breathing was shallow. "Why?" she whispered, lowering herself beside him. Evan's eyes fluttered open. "Because you're not alone," he said weakly. Her hands trembled as she held him. The entire court watched in stunned silence as the most powerful queen in the galaxy knelt beside a human, and for the first time they understood. Humanity was not a threat because it sought power. Humanity was a threat because it refused to let power stand alone. Evan did not wake right away. Darkness wrapped around him, thick and heavy like deep water. He felt warmth first, gentle and steady, surrounding his body. Then came sound, distant voices, low and urgent, fading in and out. "His condition is stable. He should not have survived that. Humans are resilient, but this is unprecedented." Evan tried to move. Pain answered him, sharp and deep, but it did not overwhelm him. It reminded him that he was still alive. Slowly his eyes opened. Light filled his vision, soft and golden. He blinked several times, his sight clearing. He was lying on a wide platform made of smooth crystal, surrounded by faint energy fields that hummed quietly. The air smelled clean, almost fresh like rain after a storm. He turned his head slightly. Queen Aurelian was there. She stood beside him, taller than anyone else in the room, her radiant presence dimmed but focused entirely on him. Her eyes were fixed on his face, unblinking. "You're staring," Evan said weakly. For a heartbeat, the queen did not respond. Then she exhaled, a long, slow breath like she had been holding it for hours. "You are awake," she said softly. "I figured," Evan replied, "unless this is some very strange afterlife." Her lips curved faintly. If it were, it would not allow humor. Evan tried to smile, but it came out more like a wince. "That bad, huh? You absorbed a force meant to fracture a starship," she said. "Your body should not exist anymore." "But it does," Evan said. "Yes," she replied, "it does." She stepped closer, her voice lowering. "Why did you do it?" Evan frowned slightly. "I already told you." "I know what you said," she replied. "I want to know why it was true." Evan stared up at the ceiling for a moment, gathering his thoughts. "Back home," he said slowly, "we don't always get help when things go wrong. Sometimes, if you don't step in, no one else will." He turned his head to look at her. "You were standing alone up there, powerful, yes, but alone, and I know what that feels like." Her gaze softened. "You could have died," she said. "So could you," Evan replied. Silence stretched between them. Around them, healers quietly withdrew, sensing that this moment was not meant for others. Soon, only the two of them remained. "You changed the court today," the queen said at last. "I didn't mean to," Evan replied. "That is what makes it irreversible," she said. She moved to the edge of the platform and sat, something no one in the Empire had ever seen her do in the presence of another. Her posture was less regal now, more real. "The nobles saw me hesitate," she said. "They saw fear." "That's not weakness," Evan said. "They believe it is," she replied. "They have built their entire existence on the idea that power must never bend." Evan nodded. "That's how things break." She looked at him sharply. "Yes," she said, "exactly." The chamber lights dimmed slightly as alarms faded in the distance. The palace was stabilizing, but the empire was not. "The court is divided," the queen continued. "Some fear you, some fear me, many fear what we represent together." "Which is?" Evan asked. "Change," she said, "the kind they cannot control." Evan shifted carefully, testing his body. Pain flared, but it was manageable. "So what happens now?" The queen stood. "Now," she said, "I must act before they do." She raised a hand, and the space beside them shimmered. An image formed, live projections of the galactic court chamber. Nobles gathered in clusters, arguing openly. The High Arbiter hovered at the center, trying and failing to restore order. "Lord Vakar's attack removed a powerful voice," the queen said, "but it also exposed the truth he spoke too soon." Evan watched the arguing figures. "They're scared." "Yes," she replied, "and scared rulers are dangerous." She turned to him. "They will demand a solution." "A declaration, something final." Evan's chest tightened. "And you?" "I will give them one," she said. He met her gaze. "That sounds ominous." "It is necessary," she replied calmly. Moments later, guards entered, followed by Lyrian, the first voice. Lyrian bowed deeply when they saw Evan awake. "You have caused quite a disruption," Lyrian said gently. "So I've been told," Evan replied. "The court is assembled," Lyrian continued. "They demand the queen's presence." The queen nodded. "Prepare the chamber." She looked back at Evan. You should not be there. Evan raised an eyebrow. That's never stopped me before. This time it might, she said softly. What I am about to do will place you directly in their focus. Evan considered that. Then maybe that's where I should be. The Queen studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Very well, she said, but you will stand beside me, not in front. Evan smiled faintly. Deal. They moved through the palace together. Evan walked slowly, supported by subtle energy fields that eased his injuries. Every corridor they passed through fell silent. Guards straightened, servants froze, whispers followed them like shadows. By the time they reached the great hall, the tension was almost visible. The Queen stepped forward first. The hall bowed. Evan followed, stopping beside her throne. He felt thousands of eyes lock onto him at once. The High Arbiter spoke. Your Majesty, the court awaits your judgment regarding the human and the future stability of the Empire. The Queen did not sit. She stood tall, radiant, undeniable. You have all felt it, she said, her voice carrying without effort. The strain, the imbalance, the truth you feared to name. Murmurs rippled through the hall. My power is no secret now, she continued. It grows through conquest. Through fear, through submission. Several nobles shifted uncomfortably. That path ends in collapse, she said. Not someday, soon. A noble stepped forward. Then relinquish power, they demanded. Divide the empire, the Queen's gaze hardened. And plunge the galaxy into endless war? No. Another voice rose. Then destroy the human and end this instability. Evan felt the weight of those words, but he did not move. The Queen's eyes flashed. No, she said. I will do neither. She extended her hand toward Evan. This human is not a weakness, she said. He is proof of another way. Gasps echoed through the hall. Humanity survives without endless conquest, she continued. They rebuild, they adapt, they endure. She tightened her grip slightly on Evan's arm, not possessive, but grounding. Through him, she said, I have felt my power stabilize, slow, balance. The High Arbiter's lights flickered. You propose integration. I propose union, the Queen said. The hall exploded. Shouts, cries, disbelief. A union, a warlord roared. With a human, Evan felt his heart pound. He turned to the Queen, his voice low. You're sure about this? She did not look away from the court. I have never been more certain of anything. The High Arbiter struggled to restore order. By ancient law, such a declaration is mine to make, the Queen interrupted. As sovereign, she raised her voice, silencing the hall. I will bind myself to humanity, she declared, through a formal bond, through shared rule. Through choice, every being in the chamber froze. This union will anchor my power, she continued, and force the Empire to change its course. A noble hissed. You would place the fate of the galaxy in human hands? The Queen turned her gaze fully on them. No, she said. I place it in shared hands, mine and his. She looked at Evan then, and for the first time the entire court saw it. Not domination, not control, trust. Evan took a slow breath and stepped forward. I didn't come here to rule you, he said. And I didn't come here to be worshipped. He looked around the hall. I came because someone asked humanity to speak, so here it is. Silence fell. We don't survive because we're strong, Evan said. We survive because we don't give up on each other. If this empire wants to keep existing, it has to learn that too. Some faces hardened, others softened. The Queen raised her hand again. The formal declaration will be made after the final rite, she said. A trial not of strength, but of intent. The High Arbiter hesitated. And if the human fails, the Queen's voice was steady, then I will step down. The hall erupted again. Evan turned to her sharply. That's not what we agreed. She met his gaze. Trust, she said quietly. He held her eyes, then nodded once. The court watched in stunned silence as the Queen of the Galaxy placed the future of her empire not in force, but in faith. And as Evan stood beside her, still wounded, still human, the galaxy began to understand a new truth. Power could rule. But only balance could last. The silence after the Queen's declaration did not break all at once. It spread slowly, like a shadow moving across the great hall. Thousands of beings stood frozen, their minds racing, their old beliefs cracking under the weight of what they had just heard. A trial not of strength, a trial of intent. And if the human failed, the Queen herself would step down. No one had ever offered such a thing. The High Arbiter was the first to recover. Its crystalline form glowed brighter, adjusting to the moment. By ancient law, it said carefully, a trial of intent may only be witnessed by the full court. The trial must reveal the true nature of the one bound to the sovereign. So be it, the Queen replied. Evan felt every eye turn toward him again. He swallowed, his injuries still aching, but he stood straight. What does the trial involve? He asked quietly. The High Arbiter paused. The subject will be placed within the Nexus field. A construct older than this empire. It does not test power, it reflects the heart. Evan blinked. That sounds vague. It is, the Queen said, and that is why it cannot be cheated. A platform rose slowly from the center of the hall. Its surface shimmered like liquid glass, patterns moving beneath it like flowing memories. The Queen turned to Evan. Once you step inside, the field will show the court who you truly are, your fears, your intentions, your limits. And if they don't like what they see? Evan asked. Then I keep my word, she said. I step down. Evan looked at her for a long moment. You're risking everything, she nodded. So are you. He let out a slow breath and stepped forward. The moment Evan touched the platform, the world changed. The hall vanished. He stood alone in a wide, open space beneath a dark sky. There were no stars, no walls, no sound, just silence and a faint glow beneath his feet. Then the images began. The court watched as light spilled from the Nexus field, forming scenes around Evan. Not illusions meant to impress, but moments pulled directly from his life. They saw a younger Evan standing in the ruins of a city, hands shaking as he helped pull survivors from broken stone. They saw him rationing food, giving his share away. They saw him argue with leaders not for power, but to protect people who had no voice. Whispers spread through the hall. The images shifted. They saw Evan afraid, truly afraid, alone in space after a failed mission. Mourning friends he could not save, sitting in silence, questioning whether anything he did mattered. Then they saw him stand back up, again and again. The Nexus field did not show glory, it showed persistence. Evan felt every moment as if it were happening again. His chest tightened, but he did not look away. He let the field show everything. Then the final image formed, Evan standing in front of the Queen, not in armor, not as a hero, just a human stepping forward without being asked. The field dimmed. Silence filled the hall once more. The High Arbiter spoke softly. The trial is complete. A noble broke the quiet. He has no hunger for power. Another voice followed. He fears it. That may be worse, someone muttered. The Queen stepped forward. Look closer, she said. The field responded, showing one last truth. Evan's intent, not ambition, not control, responsibility. The desire to stand between danger and those who could not. The desire to share weight, not shift it. The field faded completely. Evan stood alone on the platform, breathing hard. The High Arbiter turned slowly. By law, the trial has been passed. A shockwave of reaction swept through the court. Some nobles bowed their heads, others backed away in fear. A few stared at Evan as if seeing humans for the first time. The Queen raised her hand and silence returned. The trial has spoken, she said. Now I will. She turned fully toward Evan. Her voice softened, but it carried farther than before. Evan Hale, she said, you stood before my enemies without command. You faced my power without submission. You revealed your truth without demand for reward. She extended her hand. Before this court, before this galaxy, I declare you my chosen spouse. The words struck like thunder. The court erupted. Some shouted in protest. Others fell to their knees in stunned acceptance. Ancient beings who had never known uncertainty felt it grip them all at once. Evan froze. He stared at her, heart pounding. You didn't say that part would be public. She met his gaze, calm and steady. Power must change where all can see it. He let out a shaky breath. You know I don't want a crown. I know, she said. That is why you will never wear one. She turned back to the court. This bond does not place him above you, she declared. It places him beside me. She lifted Evan's hand. From this moment forward, she continued, my power is bound by human endurance. My rule is shared by human perspective. The age of rule through fear ends now. A warlord stepped forward, voice trembling with anger. You cannot force loyalty with sentiment. No, the Queen replied. I will inspire it with survival. She looked across the hall. Those who cannot accept this change are free to leave, she said. But those who remain will help build something stronger than conquest. Slowly, one by one, figures bowed, not to Evan, to the future. The palace did not erupt into celebration. Change like this never did, but something quieter happened. Tension eased. Fear loosened its grip. In the days that followed, the galaxy reacted. Some systems resisted. Others watched carefully. Many reached out to humanity for the first time, not as subjects or curiosities, but as equals. Evan stood beside the Queen through it all. He did not command fleets. He did not issue threats. He listened. When disputes rose, he asked questions others had forgotten to ask. When power flared, the queen felt it slow, steady, grounded by his presence. The empire did not weaken. It stabilized. Months later, the court gathered again. This time there were no weapons raised, no whispers of assassination. The queen sat on her throne. Evan stood beside her, not above, not below. The high arbiter spoke. The empire endures. The nexus confirms balance. The queen turned to Evan. Do you regret it? He thought of Earth, of rebuilding, of standing back up. No, he said. Do you? She smiled. Not for a moment. Across the galaxy, a new truth spread from world to world. Humanity did not conquer the stars. It taught them how to endure together. And the most powerful queen in the galaxy did not lose her throne. She shared it, and in doing so, saved everything.